The email arrived at 9:12 p.m. It looked harmless, just a follow-up from the event planner. I clicked it without thinking. Then I saw the guest list. My name wasn't there. Not even misspelled. Not even hidden at the bottom. Completely erased. I stared at the screen for a long minute. My chest felt strangely calm. Almost rehearsed. Because this wasn't new. It was only the loudest version of an old pattern. 16 years of giving. 16 years of being useful, but never seen. Still, something shifted in that moment. Like a thread finally snapping. I reread the contract I had signed. $3,000. My savings. My name. My right. And for the first time, I didn't swallow the hurt. I didn't excuse them. I didn't stay quiet. I realized this wasn't an accident. It was a warning. And it was my last one. My mother remarried when I was 9. She said it was a fresh start. She said Grant was a good man. She said Brielle would be like a sister. None of that turned out true. The day we moved in, I knew my place. Brielle got the bigger room. The one with sunlight. The one with new furniture. The one painted soft pink. I got the storage room. No windows. A sagging twin mattress. A wobbly desk missing a leg. Grant said it built character. My mother said not to complain. Brielle laughed and called it the cave. I laughed too, but only because she expected it. Everything tilted toward her from the start. She got first pick of meals. First pick of clothes. First pick of attention. I learned to wait in silence. I learned to shrink myself. At dinner, Brielle talked nonstop. Grant praised every word. My mother nodded like she was hypnotized. When I tried to speak, the room chilled. Grant would cut me off. He'd say, "Let Brielle finish." But Brielle never stopped finishing. After a while, I stopped trying. I blended into the walls. I became the quiet kid. The helpful kid. The kid who didn't take up space. Chores started small. Setting the table. Cleaning my room. Then they grew. Laundry for 3 people. Dishes every night. Vacuuming the entire house. Walking the dog, even when it rained. Brielle didn't lift a finger. Grant said she was delicate. My mother said she was artistic. They never said what I was. But I knew. I was the one who kept things running. I was the one who made life easier for them. I was the one who didn't need anything. Birthdays showed the difference most clearly. Brielle's parties were extravagant. Balloons, cakes, guests, music. Mine were quiet dinners at home. A single candle. A store-brand cake. Grant always forgot the date. My mother always said work made her tired. I learned not to expect celebration. I learned not to expect fairness. Even at school, the favoritism followed me. Brielle bragged about everything she had. She told her friends I lived in the small room. She said it proudly, like a fun fact. I laughed along again. It was safer that way. Grant corrected my posture. He corrected my tone. He corrected my choices. But he never corrected Brielle. When she yelled, it was passion. When I spoke firmly, it was disrespect. I tried to earn approval. I tried to be perfect. Straight as. Clean house. No trouble. But nothing I did ever tipped the scale. Every reward flowed to Brielle. Every burden fell on me. I felt myself fatting, like a shadow trailing behind their lives. Still, I kept going. Kids believe what they are taught. And I was taught that love had conditions. I was taught that worth had a hierarchy. I was taught that my place was beneath Brielle. And for years, I accepted it. Because I didn't know there was another way to live. I didn't know I could want more. I didn't know I was allowed to be more. I started waking up at 5:30 a.m. when I was 14. The alarm was silent. I didn't need one. My body learned the routine before my mind did. Up before everyone, tiptoeing through the hallway, making breakfast like a ghost cook, toast for Grant, oatmeal for my mother, egg white omelet for Brielle. Always different, always specific. No one ever said thank you. They acted like the food made itself. After breakfast came chores, packing lunches, feeding the dog, wiping counters, checking Brielle's dance bag, making sure her shoes weren't missing. If something was wrong, it was always my fault. Grant said responsibility builds discipline, but somehow it only built mine. Brielle floated through mornings like a princess, still sleepy, still pampered, still untouched by responsibility. When she frowned, everyone scrambled. When I was tired, nobody noticed. My mother said money was tight. She said we needed to be careful. She said wants should come after needs. But the rules only applied to me. When Brielle asked for new outfits, the answer was yes. When she wanted private dance lessons, yes again. When she begged for the latest phone, Grant bought it the same week. Meanwhile, I wore hand-me-downs. My shoes were 2 sizes too small. My backpack straps were tearing. But my mother said it was fine. She said I didn't need more. She said I should be grateful. At 16, I got my first job. A cashier at a small grocery store. I thought it would give me freedom. I thought it would help me feel normal. But every paycheck disappeared quickly. Groceries for the house. Gas for the car I wasn't allowed to drive. School fees nobody else wanted to pay. And always, somehow, something for Brielle. She needed a new costume. She needed makeup for a recital. She needed money for a field trip. She always needed. And it always became my problem. Grant said it was good practice for adulthood. My mother said helping family was a duty. No one asked if I had enough left for myself. I barely did. But I kept giving. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself it would get better. Brielle played the role of sweet younger sister when she wanted something. She would hug me, compliment me, tell me she admired how responsible I was. Then she'd ask for money, or a ride, or a favor that stole hours from my day. When she got what she wanted, she went back to ignoring me. Her gratitude never lasted longer than a text message. Still, I said yes, because saying no meant trouble. Grant's lectures lasted hours. My mother's guilt trips lasted days. They said I was ungrateful. They said I was selfish. They said Brielle needed support. Then they reminded me she was the talented one, the special one, the one with potential. I wondered what that made me. Invisible, maybe. Necessary, definitely. They depended on me more each year. The more competent I became, the more they demanded. I was the fixer, the helper, the quiet backbone of a house that never cared if it broke me. By the time I turned 17, I had stopped asking for anything. I stopped dreaming about normal teenage things. I didn't go to parties. I didn't join clubs. I didn't hang out after school. I worked. I cleaned. I paid. And I reminded myself that someday, somehow, I would leave. Even if I didn't yet know what freedom looked like. I got my college acceptance letter at 18. It was full scholarship. I should have felt proud. Instead, I felt wary. My mother barely looked up from her phone. Grant shrugged. Brielle squealed, but only because she saw it as a story. Not a victory for me. The day I moved into my dorm, they called immediately. "Can you help with the bills?" my mother asked. "Your father's car needs repairs," Grant added. Brielle texted, "Mom says I need new shoes. Can you help?" I counted my scholarship money. Every penny earmarked for tuition and books. I ignored the first call. The second call came an hour later. Then a third. Each one made me feel smaller. I had no choice but to send some money. A few $100s. It never seemed enough. They always found reasons. Brielle sent another message. Can you pay for my recital costume? Pretty please. I replied with a cautious yes. She replied with a heart emoji. And then didn't speak to me for a week. I realized they weren't interested in me. They were interested in my bank account. I tried to focus on classes. Biology, literature, math. I wanted to believe this was my life. But my phone kept ringing. Can you help with the utilities? Brielle needs new dance shoes. Mom's prescription isn't covered. Can you send money? Every call tugged me back. Every text was a leash. I felt guilty. For wanting to keep money for myself. For not answering immediately. For not dropping everything for them. My roommate noticed. Why do you answer every call? She asked. I shrugged. I have to, I lied. In truth, I feared their anger. I feared the guilt. I feared being seen as ungrateful. Brielle knew how to twist feelings. She sent messages that sounded sweet. She said, I just want to be close. Or, I really miss you, can you help? And every time, I sent money. Every semester, the pattern repeated. They never thanked me. They never noticed my grades. They never asked if I ate or slept enough. They only asked for money. I missed home, but I didn't miss them. I learned to hide receipts. I learned to lie about what I spent. I learned to smile while my bank account drained. By senior year, I realized I had been conditioned. Conditioned to believe my worth was measured in dollars sent home. Conditioned to feel guilty for investing in myself. Conditioned to prioritize Brielle over my own life. I started planning. Small steps. Saving secretly. Setting boundaries without saying a word. I learned to protect myself quietly. College became my training ground. Not just for learning, but for survival. For reclaiming a sense of self. I wanted to graduate. Yes. But I also wanted to leave their control behind. The calls didn't stop. The texts didn't stop. The guilt didn't stop. But I stopped answering immediately. I stopped sacrificing my needs first. And for the first time, I felt a flicker. A flicker that maybe life could be mine. Not theirs. Not Brielle's. Mine. I carried that flicker through exams. Through papers. Through late nights and stress. It was small. But it was mine. And I knew when I walked across that stage, diploma in hand, I would finally start living for myself. After graduation, I landed a high-paying job. I rented a small apartment downtown. It had a view of the city skyline. I decorated it with things I liked. Furniture I chose. Art I loved. For the first time, I felt some control. I thought freedom would feel different. But freedom came with a price. Calls from home never stopped. Grant asked for car repairs. Mom asked for utility bills. Brielle asked for money for every new hobby. Dance classes. Acting workshops. Online courses. Each one sounded innocent. Until I realized it always ended in dollars. They treated me like an ATM. Avery, the reliable bank of the Sanders family. I set limits quietly. Told them no occasionally. But the guilt hit immediately. You're selfish, Mom said. You're cold, Grant added. Brielle pouted through text. I thought you cared, she typed. I cared, just differently. I wanted to live my own life. I wanted to spend my money on myself. Rent. Food. Savings. Vacations I might actually enjoy. But every small step I took felt punished. They expected me to pay for their mistakes. Or fund Brielle's whims. I noticed a pattern. The more independent I became, the more they demanded. Every raise I earned increased their requests. Every promotion became another opportunity for them to ask. I felt trapped in plain sight. My success was their leverage. I couldn't celebrate without a reminder. "Remember who helped you," Grant said. "You owe us," Mom whispered. Brielle never said it directly. She didn't need to. Her messages carried the weight. I was responsible. Always responsible. Every gift, every opportunity, every luxury Brielle enjoyed, I paid for. And if I hesitated, the subtle accusations came. "You don't care about family. You've changed since college. You're selfish now." I realized their version of love was conditional. Only given in exchange for obedience. Only given in exchange for money. I began tracking my expenses secretly, dividing my paychecks into what I could safely use, and what I had to pretend didn't exist. I found small ways to say no without confrontation. Not answering immediately. Delaying responses. Claiming bills were paid. I became skilled at managing the guilt. At managing the pressure. But the mental load was constant. Every holiday. Every family event. Every phone call reminded me of my role. I was the giver. The supporter. The invisible provider. Even birthdays weren't mine. Every celebration reminded me of who I funded. Brielle's smiles were my responsibility. Every accomplishment of mine became a new demand. I bought her a car once. She thanked me once, then needed new tires 2 months later. I realized success didn't bring freedom. It brought expectation. And more expectation. I had to get creative. I had to build boundaries carefully. But every time I tried, I felt a tug. Guilt. Obligation. Years of conditioning made resistance painful. I wanted to love them. I wanted to be there for family. But I also wanted my life. My money. My time. I wanted to finally exist outside their control. And slowly, carefully, I started practicing it. I learned that independence wasn't just money. It was a mindset. A shield. A quiet rebellion that nobody noticed. Yet it gave me hope. A small glimmer that someday I could truly live for myself. Not for them. Not for Brielle. Not for the expectations they built. Just for me. Brielle called me one morning. Her voice was sweet, almost innocent. "Can you help me with the birthday party?" she asked. She wanted me to pay the deposit. $3,000. I hesitated. My mind raced. I remembered every time I had given before. Every expectation. Every guilt trip. "Sure," I said, trying to sound casual. The day we met at Riverside Terrace, I felt uneasy. The place was luxurious. The staff greeted Brielle like royalty. I realized how little they valued me. I was invisible, even in the room where I paid for everything. I asked politely to put my name on the deposit receipt. Grant's expression darkened immediately. "You can't do that," he snapped. His hand struck my cheek. The sound was sharp. I froze. My mother didn't intervene. She stayed quiet. Brielle looked away, pretending nothing happened. She didn't apologize. She didn't defend me. Instead, she whispered, "It's fine, don't make a scene." I felt the old familiar anger rising. The one I had buried for years. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to make them understand. But I stayed calm. I knew they thrived on reaction. They wanted guilt. They wanted me small. They wanted control. I realized the deposit was more than money. It was leverage. Another tool to manipulate me. They thought they could dictate everything. Every action. Every dollar. Every word. I had a choice in that moment. I could continue being their bank. Or I could stop. I chose to stop. Grant's eyes were furious. My mother was tense. Brielle still avoided looking at me. They expected me to apologize. I didn't. I didn't flinch. I didn't justify myself. I simply walked away from the confrontation. But I kept the receipt. I studied the contract carefully. I found the clause they had overlooked. Clause 4.2. If the depositor was not on the guest list, they had the right to cancel. Without penalty. I smiled quietly. It felt dangerous. Exciting. Powerful. I realized I could finally take control. The deadline loomed. $16,000 due soon. No Tyler. No help. No excuses for them. I stayed silent. They didn't know my plan. I didn't give them a hint. They continued expecting compliance. They continued assuming I would pay. The day arrived. I canceled the party. Legally. Without breaking any rules. Chaos erupted immediately. Grant shouted. My mother begged. Brielle cried and demanded explanations. I said nothing. I let the silence speak. I let the contract speak. I let my power speak. Every plan they had built collapsed. The luxurious event dissolved. Every dollar they thought they controlled vanished. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't guilty. I wasn't obligated. I realized something important in that moment. I had fought for myself. I had drawn a line. I had reclaimed what was mine. And for the first time, I felt free. Truly free. A few days later, I checked the final guest list. My name was gone. Erased completely. No warning. No explanation. They thought it was a small detail. They didn't care. I stared at the screen. A flood of memories hit me. Every time I had been overlooked. Every time I had been taken for granted. Every dollar I had sent home. Every hour I had spent fixing their mistakes. This was just the latest chapter. I knew my options. I read the contract again. Clause 4.2. If the depositor was not on the list, the event could be canceled legally. No penalties. No repercussions. I smiled quietly. They assumed I would comply. They assumed I would continue giving. They assumed I was powerless. I stayed silent. I didn't respond to calls. I didn't answer texts. They panicked. Grant called repeatedly. My mother left frantic voicemails. Brielle texted desperate messages. Please don't do this, she wrote. I can fix it, Mom begged. But I knew the rules. I knew the contract. I had the power now. They didn't. The $16,000 was due soon. No Tyler. No backup plan. No loophole for them. Everything depended on me. I didn't waver. I didn't negotiate. I didn't justify myself. I stayed calm. Watching them unravel was satisfying. Finally, the house that had controlled me for years was chaotic. They had assumed my compliance. They had assumed my fear. They had assumed my guilt. And now, none of that mattered. I wasn't their ATM. I wasn't their servant. I wasn't invisible anymore. I had rights. I had rules on my side. I had boundaries they could not cross. They yelled at each other. They blamed me. They cried. They even threatened legal action. I remained silent. I let the contract speak. I let my calm speak. I let their panic speak for them. They realized they couldn't manipulate me anymore. For the first time, I wasn't scared. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't worried about being disowned or guilted. I was free. Completely free. Brielle's lavish plans fell apart. The staff canceled reservations. The decorations never arrived. The music was silenced. The event that was supposed to show her glory turned into chaos. And it was legal. It was fair. It was mine. I finally understood the power of knowing your rights. The power of standing firm. The power of choosing yourself first. For years, I had been manipulated emotionally and financially. Now I was. I felt light, unburdened, stronger than ever. I had drawn a line they could not cross. I had reclaimed control. I had reclaimed my dignity. No apologies were necessary. No explanations were needed. I had finally learned that freedom comes with courage. And I had it. For the first time in 16 years, I smiled. Because I knew I would never let anyone control me again. Not Brielle. Not Grant. Not my mother. Not anyone. I was done being their puppet. I was done being their invisible helper. I was done being their ATM. I was finally me. After canceling the party, the house erupted in chaos. Shouts, accusations, and blame filled the air. Brielle cried over lost plans. Grant fumed over lost money. My mother tried to mediate, but it failed. No one supported me. Except myself. For the first time, I felt calm. I realized years of manipulation no longer controlled me. I wasn't their tool anymore. I wasn't their source of money. I wasn't their shadow. Friends and event staff reached out. They expressed support and surprise. Some called it bold. Some called it brave. I just felt free. Every demand I ignored, every guilt I resisted, reinforced my strength. Brielle faced unofficial consequences in the event world. People saw her reputation differently now. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate cruelty. I celebrated myself. I celebrated boundaries. I celebrated freedom. $3,000 felt like a small price. A ticket to independence. Years of control and manipulation ended. I finally understood my value. I finally understood my rights. I finally understood my power. The fear that had followed me for 16 years vanished. I could breathe. I could choose. I could live for me. And in that quiet victory, I smiled genuinely for the first time in years. I was no longer trapped. I was no longer controlled. I was free.